Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is a Sunday. I am on call. It's around 1:30, so I went into the hospital and saw my consults this morning, and just have been returning patient phone calls and might try to do a workout class. But I wanted to film a video about things I wish I had known before I started med school, about med school that I had known before I started med school, because I've been thinking a lot about that process recently. You know, we have AIs and third years that rotate through with us, and just trying to give them advice has made me think a lot about my med school experience. And so I wrote down a couple ideas of, you know, just things that you don't quite realize about med school before you start that I wish I had known. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Let's jump right in. So the first thing, and like my first piece of advice that I give every med student, is this is the most free time in med school that you will have for the rest of your career. So make sure to enjoy it. You know, for us, like I had class from 8 to 12 every day, and then like one day a week I'd have volunteering. But other than that, my afternoons were mine, and it was lovely. And I don't think like I took full advantage of it. And hindsight is 2020. So when you're in med school, you know, obviously it's a ton of work. You have to study a lot, but like you have to be sure to have fun too, because you're still, you know, a youth, you're still in school, and you should enjoy it, because residency is really hard and you'll look back on those times fondly. Second thing is actually something that my mom said to me when I was starting med school, and it was the best piece of advice I'd ever gotten, and I just want to share it with you guys, is even if you don't think that you're going to do a competitive specialty, even if you know, don't know if you necessarily want to do residency and maybe want to do something else with your MD, keep all your options open. Give yourself every opportunity to do whatever you want to do. Meaning, you know, get the best grades you can. Be involved in all the extracurriculars or the extra volunteering or leadership or whatever. Set yourself up so that if you change your mind and say you wanted to do a less competitive specialty, and then all of a sudden you're like, maybe I want to do like dermatology or neurosurgery or one of the more competitive ones, you can do it and you don't regret not setting yourself up for that. The harm is minimal. You work hard, which I think you should be doing anyway. You learn a lot, which is the whole point. And the benefit is huge. You know, for me, like I went into med school thinking I wanted to do orthopedic surgery, which was competitive, worked hard, but then kind of around second year, I was like, maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I want to do maybe like a less competitive specialty, but I still worked as hard as I possibly could, got good grades, got good step scores, so that when I did decide, maybe I actually do want to do a specialty that's maybe a little bit more competitive, I had set myself up so that I could match into that. So it was the best piece of advice I'd ever gotten. I think that that's kind of just a great piece of advice for life. You know, keep your options as open as possible for what you want to do by working as hard as you can and doing a good job at whatever you can do, and not limiting yourself in that way. The third thing is, at least this is for my school, I'm not sure for every school, but for us, we did not have to go to lecture every day. Unlike college, where a lot of the lectures were participatory or attendance-based, in med school, the whole point is to learn. So I think a lot of schools, you don't have to go to lecture because they realize that's not the best way for some people to learn. So I went to lecture every day for my first year, and then would just end up watching the lecture all over again and taking notes, because it was like hard for me to focus when I was actually in lecture, or like sometimes I needed a little more time to like think through something while the professor was talking, and I didn't have time to do that in live time. So I would watch the lectures back, pause it, think through something, once I got it, move on, and it was just a waste of my hour going to lecture. So I then, second year, would stay home, watch the lectures, and get to do it at my own speed, and it helped me learn a lot. So just be kind of open to changing your study habits. What worked for you in college may not work for med school, and what you have to do in college, you may not have to do in med school. Next is that, I kind of touched on this, but extracurriculars are very important. Possibly more important than grades or scores, especially now that a lot of med schools are moving towards no grades, just pass fail. Step one is just pass fail. You know, they have to be able to rank students on something. So whether that be extracurriculars, leadership, volunteering, research, something like that. So those are arguably now more important than grades. And while I said, keep all your options open, that includes doing all of this extra stuff. So you have free time, you want to make the most of it by having fun, but you can also do some of these extracurriculars that really will set you up in the future for doing well in life and look really good on your resume, which is very important in med school. So I kind of limited myself in med school. Luckily, I was still at the time where grades and scores mattered, because that's really what I spent 80% of my time and focus on. But if I had to go back and do it again, I would spend a lot more time on research, a lot more time on extracurricular activities, because I also think you get to learn a lot from that, and it's a great opportunity to get involved in your community and everything while you do have more time, because now I don't have time to do that and I wish I did. So just know that that's important, and it's something that people look at, and you have time to do it. You really should be doing it in med school. Next is, I kind of touched on this, but your specialty that you go into med school thinking you're going to do is most likely not the specialty that you're going to do. I had never even heard of urology when I went into med school, and lo and behold, that's what I ended up doing. So don't put all your eggs in one basket, keep your options open, keep your interests open. If you don't get pigeonholed thinking, oh, I've been wanting to do this for my whole life, so I can't switch now. You might not be happy doing what you wanted to do your whole life because you didn't really know, right? Like, you didn't know what their day-to-day life was like, and you may be happier in something else. So just keep your options open and be willing to kind of keep your mind open and change your mind if that is what happens when you're doing your clinical rotations. Even though I keep touching on that you have way more time in med school and make the most of it, there still is a schedule that is busier than a lot of your peers. You're still working really, really hard. You're studying. For us, our exams were on Monday, so the weekends before exams, I could barely, I couldn't go out, couldn't do anything. I would just be studying. And when you're in your third year and fourth year, you're working a lot of weekends or holidays and stuff like that, so you don't get all that time off that your friends who have every weekend off and every holiday off get. So you're going to be missing some weddings, you're going to be missing parties, you're going to be missing brunches, you're going to be missing events, and you just have to be okay with that. And you have to not let that upset you. You have to learn how to not get the FOMO, because it only gets worse in residency. You have less flexibility in residency. For me, I work every other weekend. I'm on call every other weekend, so I can't do things half the weekends. I'm missing weddings and all of that. So you have to really not let that bother you too much, because it's just the reality. And it, when you first start doing it after college, like for me, I struggled with it a little bit. But you have to realize that you're working towards something that is big and it is important, and that takes some sacrifices, and you got to have fun when you can, but you also have to be willing to work hard when the opportunity or when the time calls for it. Next is that going to med school, where you go to med school doesn't really matter. And I think that sometimes people put a lot of weight in where you go to college, it matters for job searches, location, stuff like that. And where you go to med school, I think really matters way less. In certain circumstances, it might matter more, but overall, it matters way less for where you go to residency. Sometimes the location matters. So if you want to end up in California, it's harder to match in California from an East Coast school than a West Coast school. So that's something to take into consideration. But overall, the tier of the med school, I have found really doesn't matter when it comes to applying to residencies. Next is, you may rotate. In fact, I know you will rotate on your third and fourth year on rotations that you will have no interest in doing as a long-term career. But every rotation that you do, you learn something useful for your future career. So psychiatry, I did a lot of work on psychiatry. I actually did an AI in psychiatry, and I learned so much about patient communication, about techniques, everything that actually I have used in my urology residency. I find that true for peds, I find that true for internal medicine. There's a ton of stuff that you pick up on these rotations that you will use going forward, and even learning how to like interact with residents from different specialties, and learning what they do with their days and what their day looks like is just super useful for your career when you spend a lot of time talking to other residents, getting consults, calling consults. So I think it's really important to work hard during every rotation, even if it's not something that you're really interested in doing, just so you can get that learning opportunity. And even stuff like skills wise, like I remember placing IVs on my internal medicine rotation, and you get these skills. My friend was saying how on her interventional radiology rotation she got to like place ports by herself and learned how to ultrasound really well, and all of which has served her. We do a lot of bedside ultrasounds in urology, so while she didn't end up going into interventional radiology, you learn a lot of these skills that are important in your career and in your residency. So I don't think that you should ever discount a rotation being like, oh, I don't really want to do this. And it's also fun. Like, you will spend the rest of your career in one specialty pretty much. It's fun to get to rotate through pediatrics, to get to rotate through these specialties that you'll never do again, because it's like your one taste of medicine from these specialties. So I wish that sometimes I had been a little more involved in some of the specialties that I maybe didn't want to do as a career, and spent a little bit more effort in them, because I regret not doing that now. Kind of along the same lines, I always thought as a third or fourth year, like, oh, they're just here, like, they're just asking me to do stuff because they have to, or they want to help me learn. But as a third and fourth year, you are really considered part of the team. And now as a resident, I know, like, I rely on the third years and I rely on the fourth years to help me with these patients. There's often more than I can do in a day, and I need to be in like 3 places at once. So I do rely on them to help me, and I really consider them part of the team. So, you may feel like you're useless as a third year, or that you're a burden, but you're really not. You are part of the team, and it's nice to have a fresh face. And it's also nice because I enjoy like teaching med students and teaching fourth years. And even if they don't go into urology, I always like to say, you have to learn how to place a catheter, so you don't consult me to place a catheter. So I try to do as much teaching, and I really value those members of the team, which is something I wish I had known as a third year. It's just nice to know that you're valued, and that what you're doing and what you're spending your whole time doing matters. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions for further videos or additions to part 2 to this video, please let me know. Please let me know if you're in medicine what you wish you had known, because I am very curious. Or if you're an attending, what you wish you had known during residency, because I would like to learn that. But I hope you enjoyed this. Please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.